Think of the craziest poker game you can imagine. I got invited to the private section of the ARIA with celebrities and legends like Tom Dwan, Madison Beer, Nick Austin, Bryce Hall, Ryan Feldman, and more. The action was crazy and the stakes were insane. Let's ride. First hand, we're gonna battle with our good buddy Ryan Feldman, co-owner of Hustler Casino Live, which you might have heard of by now. He opens it up to $100, and of course, I'm gonna 3-bet him with the premium Ace-King of Spades. Ryan's going nowhere. He puts in the call, and we see a pretty great flop of Ace-10-4 with one spade. After he checks, I'm gonna go for a bet here. A lot of hands to protect against, like King-Jack of Clubs, King-Queen of Diamonds, stuff like that. When he checks, I down bet to 275. And he's a smart guy and finds the fold 1-for-1 on the night. Moving right along into the second hand, where I find myself with Ace-8 offsuit from the $50 straddle. 4 other players decide to limp in. I check my option and we see a pretty great flop of Ace-8-4 rainbow. Villain in the +2 bets out for $200 and the action comes back around to me. I go for the check raise up to 600. Maybe a little bit ambitious, springing the trap just yet, but it's going to look strong on the flop or turn no matter what, so might as well start piling the money in against a hand like Ace-4, Ace-10, Ace-Queen, something like that. But it doesn't matter, he folds, and we're 2 for 2 on the night, scooping in this 1K pot. We put the knit game on for $50. It's progressive, meaning you can win a bunch of knit buttons and get paid out for each one. Raver finds himself in this absolute dream spot on a double board run out where he flops the nuts on both. Alright, in this hand, it gets out of hand early with the 50 and 100 straddles both on. The hijack opens it up to $400, which seems pretty normal with a $100 straddle out there. And of course, I have to come in for a 3-bet. It's just a 3-bet, but we have to make it $1,100 because of all the action in front of us. 400 to 1,100, it's back over to the hijack, who decides to defend for $700 more, and just like that, we are heads up in position to an ace-high flop. And it gets worse for us with our king high. The villain in the hijack jams for $1,500, making our life miserable. Well, it's pretty easy. We're just going to fold this here. He could easily have an ace, a set of 8s, 6s, something like that. I'm not putting more money in the middle, $3,900 going his way, but because of the knit game, he has to show, and he probably turns over Ace-10 offsuit, so we made a great fold there, but still stings a little bit to not hit a king or queen on that board. Moving right along into the next hand, we look down at Jack-9 of diamonds from the low jack. $50 under the gun straddle is on, as it will be pretty much the rest of the night. At this point, the knit game is still on. I haven't won a hand yet, so you know we have to battle with a Jack-9 suited from the low jack. When I raise it up to $300, somehow, some way, we are going 5 ways to the flop. Yes, Bryce Hall and 4 other players put in the call. And just like that, we are going in position to a bloated flop. Let's see if we can flop Gin here, and that's what we get, Ace-7-7 rainbow. Well, not Gin because we don't smash the board, but when everybody checks to me, I'm going to go for a C-bet here. I'm going to go small, making it look like I have a hand like Ace-King, Ace-Queen, or maybe even something like my favorite hand, pocket 7s, 7-6 or 7-5, something like that. 375 is the bet. Just a little tickle into the pot, seeing if anybody is squirmish, and they all fold. Yes, all of the other players fold. What nits? We turn over the jack high and get rewarded with a knit button, and just like that, we are out of the game. We are safe and gonna collect those bounties in a few hands here.
Are my aces, Bryce?
Yeah, well, I have Jack-5 suited.
Oh, yeah, okay.
What's about to do on top?
Alright, this hand is fun. I look down at Jack-8 of clubs from the big blind. There's a raise under the gun to $100, and the small blind villain puts in the call. I'm not going anywhere with my Jack-8 suited. I put in the call, and we flop ourselves a gutter to the straight when it comes Queen 9-6 with 2 hearts. Small blind checks it over to me. I check, and under the gun goes for a C-bet. Pretty normal size of 125. And the small blind puts in the call. Now, in any normal game, this is probably just a fold because we just have a gutter and jack high, and if the turn is the 10 of hearts, we could be losing against any flush. Now, I said any normal game, this is probably a fold. However, this is not your normal typical game, so got to give action if you want to get action and get invited back. So I put in the call here with my jack high and immediately get rewarded by the poker gods when they spike the 10 of diamonds in on the turn. Bang, we turn the straight. Pretty disguised too. I don't really think anyone's going to think twice about me having the queen high straight here. So when the villain in the small blind checks it to me, not going to put more money in yet. Let's go for the check raise. Check it over to under the gun, who takes the bait and bets out $200. Small blind's going nowhere and puts in the call, and now we definitely have to spring the trap. For one, there's a lot of two-pair combos out there. There's the heart flush draw, diamond flush draw, pair plus straight draw. Lots to get value from, so I'm going to go to a size of $700, which honestly is kind of small. I probably could size up to around 1,000 and still get called by a lot of flush draws. So yeah, I'm pretty surprised when I make it 700 and both players fold. Still, it feels pretty good to turn the second nuts and get a little bit of value there, but would have loved a call or a shove from under the gun. We were snapping it off. Alright, I find myself in this next hand with 10-9 offsuit from the +2 position, and I start with a limp. Not your normal game, gotta be limping a few times here, so I put in the limp. Bryce is a student of the game, so he follows the leader and puts in the limp as well. Ryan is a crusher and raises it up to 225 from the big blind. The action comes back around to me. Not going anywhere, I put in the call, Bryce puts in the call, and we are going three ways to a flop, which comes ace, queen, jack with 2 hearts, and Ryan bets out for $400 into the field. Now at first glance, this is definitely a board that favors Ryan. However, I have the open-ended straight draw, so I'm calling this bet all day. Let's see if Bryce puts in the money as well. Nope, he gets out of the way, and we are going heads up in position to a turn, which comes the 5 of clubs. It's not the 8 or king that we desired to see on the turn, and Ryan capitalizes on this and bets out for $1,000 into the $1,500 pot. At this moment, we're not getting direct pot odds to call, I don't think, especially with 2 flush draws out there. And if a king comes out there, there's always the possibility we could be chopping versus a hand like ace 10, queen 10, jack 10. We would love to see an 8 on the river, which would give me the essential nuts. But at the same time, I'm playing in a crazy game I got invited to. Got to put the 1K in there. Can't be folding the open-ended straight draws. I toss it in the middle, hoping to spike that miracle card on the river, which of course the dealer does not put out. Instead, it comes the deuce of clubs, and Ryan does not slow down once again, although his sizing now is a little bit small. He bets $1,600. Usually when people go small in this spot, they're either trying to milk you for value or they have a hand that doesn't want it to get checked through, but doesn't want to see a raise. A raise here would definitely be interesting considering I have 10 high. Another interesting play that my editor Lucas told me about after the fact is what if I put in the raise here and I just jammed on him and then told him for $200 he could choose any of one of my cards to show. Of course, if I jammed on him and offered a $200 show card, he would have to take it. That's a great price. Now imagine this. He chooses the 10 of spades. He'll think I have the straight. If he turns over the 9 of clubs, he'll think I have the flush. So a 200 IQ move there from my editor Lucas. Unfortunately, I'm not that smart and didn't decide to do that in the moment. Instead, I just mucked my 10 high and might have let Ryan get away with one there. But he knows I'm filming for the vlog, so he tosses me over his cards. And I see he had a pretty strong hand, ace queen. In this type of game setting, it was going to be pretty hard to get him off that type of hand. This next hand is what you would call out of line. The $50 and $100 straddles are both on. I'm next up and decide to put in that $200 straddle. Gotta give that action if you want to get some. Nick Austin raises it up to $500 and 2 other players put in the call. Can't go anywhere with the 9-6 off from the straddle. It's only $300 more to me. And I put in that call and actually flop what I think is an amazing flop for 9-6 off. Comes 9-8-7 with 2 spades. Of course, we have top pair, open-ended straight draw, backdoor straight flush draw. Tons of possibilities. I start with a check. Action checks over to Nick, who bets out for $900 into the field. And Ryan Feldman puts in the call. I don't think I can fold just yet. Could I go for a check raise and put more money in the middle with a ton of possibilities? It's impossible for me to have 0 equity, even if they had a hand like pocket 8s, any 10 or 5 would give me the straight. Instead though, I'm a wuss. I just put in the call. Let me know down in the comments if you're ever check raising here. It'd have to be pretty sizable, like $3,500 to $4,500 in my opinion, and then setting up a turn jam. Is that something you guys want to put into the repertoire, or are you just calling here with a pair plus open-ended straight draw? I decide just to call, and that leads us off to the turn, which comes in interesting, but not my favorite, jack of clubs. Ryan checks it over to me. I check for a second time, and Nick Austin does not slow down. He rips his entire stack in for $2,100, and Ryan pretty quickly gets out of the way. I thought there was a chance I was ahead on the flop, but when he jams the turn, He's representing a lot of decent hands. He could have any of the overpairs like queens, kings, aces. Of course, he could have jacks, ace jack, king jack, maybe even a hand like 10 queen or ace 10 for the straight. I don't think there's a world in which I can put more money in the middle. So of course I fold, and lucky me for filming a vlog, everyone is showing me their cards tonight. And Nick Austin slides over his, just like Ryan did, and I see I made a great fold versus the ladies. Speaking of the ladies, Nick Austin raises it up to $100, and I put in the call. This might be the hand of the night here. I put in the call from the big blind with 9-5 offsuit, and the flop comes ace 10-10. I start with a check. Nick Austin bets $100, and I check raise him to $250. Wait, hold on a second. Why did I check raise to $250? Well, the game's pretty crazy, and we're going to find out right away if he has an ace or a 10 in his hand. Sure, he could just peel here with a hand like 9s or 8s, but if I raise here and then fire turn and river, there's no world in which he can put in more money and call me down with that. Out of the big blind, I'm going to have all the random 10x like 10 jack, 10 9, 10 8, 10 7, Daniel Negreanu's favorite hand. So yeah, I'm going to start the story now. And it'd be pretty sick for the vlog if I could bluff Nick Austin here. I raise it up to $250 and he puts in the call, so no alarm bells just yet. He could have a weak ace. I don't really think he has a 10, and he could have some random pocket pairs as well. So when the turn comes the deuce of clubs, I'm continuing the story of a strong hand, and I put in $500 into that $800 pot, and the action's on Nick. Now if he puts in the call, I would be in a weird spot. I think all of his pocket pairs at this point would have folded, so most likely he would be on a pretty crappy ace. Now pretty crappy ace putting in the call on the turn makes a lot of sense. Now any sort of ace on the turn would put in the $500, but if I blast the river, he's got to give me credit for having a 10, right? You would think he puts in the call and we are off to the river. It's the 4 of hearts, really shouldn't change too much. I'm still representing a 10 if I go for a large bet. And he's been sticky so far up until the turn, so we got to put more money in with our 9 high. Can't check this over to him and let him check it down with a hand like ace 5, ace 4, ace 6, something like that. Got to put him to the test. If he can call with an ace there, so be it. He's going to win my money. I fire out for $1,250 into the $1,800 pot, and Nick goes into the tank for a while, between a minute and 2 minutes. He's in the tank. I'm doing my best Tom Dwan impersonation because he's in the vicinity. For those of you that didn't watch him in the past, what he would do is he'd stare at one card right in the middle of the board. I chose the ace of clubs, and I'm not breaking eye contact with it. Although I see out of the corner of my eye that Nick decides to flash a card to his girlfriend across the table. At this point, I assume he's showing some sort of ace because that's what makes the most sense. But after showing her the card, he ends up thinking for around 30 seconds more. Before finding the call, he puts in the money and turns over his hand. I'm expecting to see an ace until he turns over king deuce of spades. He ended up showing her the deuce of spades. Later on, she told me that she was shaking her head no, as in to reference do not call. He disobeyed her and put in the money. An absolute legend there, a sicko for calling me with just a pair of deuces. He thought I was full of it and got rewarded with that $4,400 pot. Man, that was a crazy hand. I thought my 9 high bluff would get through there. I was trying to get an ace to fold, but little did I know I was playing against a sicko who couldn't release a pair of ducks. All right, 2 hands ago here, I move seats and look down at pocket nueves and raise them up to $100. Bryce Hall puts in the call. We're going to battle with a TikToker. See if we can go viral here, and the flop comes jack 8-8 with 2 hearts. Bryce checks it over to me. Seems like a pretty good board to go for a c-bet on, so I fire out for $100. He puts in the snap call, and we're off to the turn, which comes the 5 of spades. When he checks it over to me for a second time, I'm going to check here and try to trap him and get a little bit more money on the river. He checks it over to me for a third time when the 10 of hearts peels off. Not exactly the best card in the world, but I have the 9 of hearts in my hand, blocking all those straight flush ideas. So yeah, I decide to bet out for $100 more, just trying to milk any sort of 7s, 6s, pocket 4s, some random hands there. It might be a little bit too thin, but Bryce folds. I turn over my cards to show him he made a good fold. And yeah, he got off the hook there. Nice hand, Bryce.
Okay, yeah, no, that's good.
over.
No, that's good.
Thought you were calling, Bryce.
No, I lied to your vlog.
Good man, good man. All right, last hand of the night. Let's end it with a bang. 10-8 of spades from the low jack, and I raise it up to $100. I get 3-bet out of the small blind all the way up to $425. Putting in the call in position this late at night seems like a recipe for success. Wouldn't you guys agree? And the dealer card kind of obliges and puts out a decent one for me. 8-7-3 with 1 spade. And the action's on the small blind, who does not slow down after 3-betting me pre-flop. He puts in $375, And I'm not going anywhere with my top pair, backdoor straight draw, backdoor flush draw, putting in that call, and we're off to the turn, which comes a 7 of spades, pairing the board. But in this $1,600 pot, we now find ourselves with a backdoor spade flush idea. Small blind does not slow down once again. He's representing all of the overpairs here, like jacks, queens, kings, aces, maybe even a hand like ace king of spades, which would be pretty nasty, and I definitely don't want to find myself in that spot. He continues to the tune of $900, and I'm not going anywhere. I think a raise would be pretty dumb. I think a fold would also be equally as dumb. So that only leaves one option, which is to toss in 9 black chips. We're off to the river. I'm hoping to see a spade, but instead it gives me a better 2 pair. It comes the 10 of hearts. Now I have 10s and 8s with a 7 kicker. The villain in the small blind checks it over to me. And just in case he has a hand like jacks or queens that's somehow checking this river, I decide to check it behind and not go for thin value in this $3,400 pot. The reason is if he had jacks, he would have a better 2 pair, jacks and 7s, and I would be no good, and that's definitely in his range. I could easily have a 7x in my hand here, and he doesn't want to get raised on the river, so I like his check, and when I check behind, he says I have the best hand, so I quickly turn it over. Fortunately for you guys, you'll never see what he has, but fortunately for me, I'm taking in the last pot of the night. Now at this point of the night, the game ends up breaking. Why? Not because of a lack of action, but because of a lack of degeneracy. Everyone wants to head over to the high limit pits, play some blackjack, roulette, and some craps. I book a $5,400 loss at this $2,550 table, but in the pits, we do some damage and get the casino. You'll have to see in the outro how good I did. Well, that wraps up that crazy 25-25 session with all of our friends there, old and new. We ended up losing $5,450 in that game, which definitely not too stoked about. But then we took our action over to the high limit blackjack pits. Ended up betting like $2,100 a hand on blackjack, which is by far the most I've ever bet, and made it all back plus like 2K. So I ended up making some money tonight, which is not too bad, and I'll definitely take it. Shout out to everyone that I met tonight. Tom Dwan was there. We got Ryan Feldman. Alan Keating was in the mix. Madison Beer, Nick Austin, Bryce Hall. Got Raver and a bunch of new friends that I can't remember the names at the moment. But yeah, ended up booking a 2K profit if you include all the degenerate games, a 5.5K loss if you don't. Tons of gambling there, and definitely stoked to check out a bunch of those home games that I'm going to get invited to in LA. If you guys like this video, be sure to hit the thumbs up button, leave a comment down below. Main event is coming up soon. Wish me luck. I'll catch you in the next video. Peace.